Today, obviously, there was a spirited conversation around the legalities around how procurement is handled in the city. Clearly, the legal dynamic of this ordinance has left me no choice but to veto it. But I am committed to making sure that we are coming up with a collaborative approach to find systems that will actually work. With that, I will take questions.
Mayor Liz Nagy with ABC 7. So you just said you plan to veto this.
Yes.
33 city council members voted in favor. There was a very spirited debate. Why do you feel like the city does not need ShotSpotter at this point?
So just for clarification, there's two parts of your question, I think, potentially. You're asking about the veto, which does not have anything to do with ShotSpotter technically. And then there's a question about ShotSpotter. Is that correct? Okay. All right. Just want to make sure clarify. So as far as the veto, I will allow my corporate counsel to speak to the fact that this is an illegal ordinance. Mary Richardson-Laurie.
Good evening. Mary Richardson-Laurie, Corporation Counsel for the City of Chicago. The mayor referenced the veto because the thing that passed is in violation of the Separation of Powers Act. Legislative branch cannot compel the executive branch to act. Hence, the item is a vetoable item, and the mayor is going to exercise that privilege.
Thank you. And as far as the ShotSpotter in and of itself, look, public safety, community safety is still my top priority. It will always be. Raising a family in Austin is the joy of my life, and it's a community, of course, that has suffered over the course of decades of disinvestment and has been, unfortunately, a very violent community. And so the loss of life in this city has not just gripped my heart in a very painful way, it has caused a tremendous amount of anxiety for decades in this city. And so that's why I'm committed to investing in things that actually work. So I made a commitment to hire more detectives. I said 200 by the end of my first term. We're going to get that done by the end of this year. We're going to have three new helicopters. Right? We're also investing in public health. Right? So this pilot program where first responders, our CIT officers, our CFD and paramedics have been responding to the mental health crises. Well, our pilot program is coming to an end, and we're going to have full-time behavioral health care workers responding to what essentially is 40% of the 911 calls. That is going to allow law enforcement to be available in communities to do its primary responsibility, which is to continue to secure these neighborhoods. So we're committed, of course, to investing in people. We're committed to technology, but it has to be technology that works. Look, cities all over America are canceling the technology. Houston, this is a red state. This is not just blue states. More moderate to conservative leaders. San Antonio, Seattle, New Orleans. They're canceling it because it has proven to be ineffective. When this was brought before the people of Chicago, this is what they were told, that it would reduce violence and it would lead to more arrests. It's done neither. That's why the state's attorney, which it's their primary responsibility to take the investigations that lead towards arrest, that leads towards conviction, said this is foul. It's why the OIG has said this is foul. Academics all over the city, all over the country, have called this corporation out for what it is. And it's an ineffective tool. And what I'm not going to do is allow the interest and the greed of a corporation to play on the fears and the anxiety of the people of Chicago.
But are you ignoring the will of the city and 33 members of city council who voted to keep it by doing that?
No.
Hey, Alderman. Alderman.
That's
sorry.
okay, but that would be.
Sorry about that.
That's,
Jeez.
no, it's okay.
It's been a long one.
I've been called worse.
I didn't know there was worse. So there were 33 votes against this or for this ordinance. There were 3 aldermen who did not vote, including one who left the room rather than voting, and he previously supported a previous ShotSpotter ordinance. Are you confident that you can prevent 34 votes to override your veto?
Well, look, again, it's illegal. Just keep in mind, it's illegal. You have to start to raise questions of why now, in the interest of democracy, that now that you have someone who is firm in their values of investing in people, that all of a sudden we don't believe that that person should have the powers that every other mayor has had. look, here's what I'm committed to doing, and I've said this repeatedly. We're going to find a pathway forward. We're going to find technology that actually works. But we're going to keep this in mind. We're going to invest in people, because the fact that those devices are in those communities, it's an admittance that these communities don't have everything that they need. What's interesting about this debate, though, was the alders who spoke about their safe communities who do not have the detection. Wouldn't it make sense to figure out why those communities don't have those detections? Because they're safe. What makes them safe? Because they're invested in. So guess what I'm going to do for the people of Chicago on the west and south sides? I'm going to invest in them, because that's what keeps people safe.
Hi, Natalie Martinez, NBC5 News. Two questions, two-parter, sorry about that, but they're quick. One, what's your response to a 48% discount from ShotSpotter? Two, did you see a social media tweet from Alderman Brendan Riley, and what is your response to it? It said Mazel Tov in the wake of some pager bombings.
Well, the 48% discount, I don't really, quite frankly, understand what their motivation is. Is their motivation simply is to make money, or do they have motivation to actually figure out how we invest in communities? Here's what I would ask corporations to do, not just this one. Pay your fair share in taxes. Do that. Do that. Work to put yourself out of business. We're talking about, a technology that can't prevent violence. It doesn't lead to more convictions. Cities all over America, not just Chicago. I want y'all to hear me good. Not just Chicago. Cities all over America are discontinuing their contract with ShotSpotter. I didn't see the tweet. I'm actually not logged on to any social media.
Hi, this is Maria Berreyesa from Univision. You say you're going to veto this ordinance. When is that going to happen?
It's happening as we speak, right? I mean, look, here's the part that's most important. I'm committed to working with alders to find technology that works. There's been a working group our Deputy Mayor, Garen Gatewood, has been leading for the last several months. We're going to make sure that the various caucuses are briefed on the RFI. I've seen some of those other forms of technology, and I'm actually, cautiously optimistic about some of these that will be presented. But we're going to work with all the stakeholders, Chicago Police Department, the Chicago Fire Department, paramedics, as well as our alders, to make sure that the RFI really speaks to what we're ultimately trying to do, which is to build a better, stronger, safer Chicago.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon.
The council today finally passed an ordinance to ban lobbyist giving to mayors and mayoral candidates. You a few months ago talked about your opposition to it because it wasn't part of a larger ethics package. Today it passed. What led you to drop your opposition?
Yeah, so we were never opposed to it. That's not entirely accurate. We were never opposed to it. We just said that if we're looking at responding to corruption, then we should look at the particular body that has had 38, 40 people convicted. Not one mayor has ever been convicted of corruption. Not one. And I'm just simply saying that if we're going to do this, we shouldn't sort of nibble around the edges. We've been in compliance with the executive order. So I hope. First of all, congratulations to Alderman Martin. He's worked hard on this. But this has never been about my opposition. This is more about what transformation looks like. And I still believe that there's still yet a lot to be desired, because we have not responded to where corruption has been quite pervasive.
Well, then maybe I could rephrase. What sort of conversations did you and the alderman have?
Those conversations were the same. Like, look, clearly I wasn't opposed to it because I didn't work to block it. We just simply said that there was a comprehensive ethics reform package. And I wasn't the only one. I believe was it Better Government? Was it BGA? BGA said that this was petite. I'm paraphrasing. That it could have been far more robust. I agree with him, and I believe the alder agreed with me, and why he decided to, not completely go all the way down the path of transformation. That's a question you should ask him.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon.
Today, the City Council voted for Alderman Walter Burnett to become the new zoning chair. But he wasn't your first pick, or maybe even your second. Does the fact that you need to go with a sort of a compromise candidate, what does that say about the traditional power of the mayor to designate chairs of powerful committees?
Alderman Burnett is an ally. He was my choice, and we got my choice confirmed today.
But he wasn't your first or second,
And how do you know that?
because Carlos was first, and then
Well, because he was my first choice for vice mayor, which he made history doing that. And so when Alderman Ramirez Rosa decided that he was willing to step down, we had multiple conversations with many different people, and he's always been a part of the conversation. And today, we secured an ally of mine to be the zoning chair.
So do you think that the fact that you decided on what is seen as a compromise candidate says anything about the traditional power of mayors to have their first choice as powerful
Well,
chairs?
again, I'm not going to, go back and forth on, Chicago politics one-on-one, but I'm happy to sit down with you at another time and we can just sort of pontificate. Today, one of my fiercest allies, Alderman Walter Burnett, was secured as my zoning chair. That's the person that I put forward. That's the person that we voted on. And that's the person who won.
And good evening.
I know, right? Good evening.
You talked about the ShotSpotter's parent company playing on people's fears, but those fears are there.
Yes.
What do you say to people out in the communities who have been hearing that some lives are being saved because of ShotSpotter and the police getting there sooner, and afraid that they're losing that in the gap between what's there now and what will come?
My top priority is to protect the people of this city, and I spend all day, every day, putting forth efforts to make sure that our people are safe across our city. Now, what I could say to that is that there are things that have made our people less safe, like closing schools. And that's why I fought to make sure that we keep schools open. Closing down and shutting down public housing, that actually makes people less safe, because if you look at the communities where these devices are not needed, that's what they have. And look, I've said from the very beginning, I'm committed to a process that allows us to find technology that helps with response. I'm going to tell people the truth of what it does. And so in my case, I get to lead and tell people the truth. Now, if someone wants their mayor to just simply appease, to help ease their anxiety, that's what led us in this mess in the first place. But if you want a mayor that's going to tell you the truth and do everything in your power, my power, to make sure that the people of this city are safe, then you have the right person. I got a 10, 12, and a 16-year-old and a wife, and I have not always been mayor. I know what that anxiety feels like. I know what that fear looks like. But you know what I also know what anxiety and fear looks like? When you don't know if your paycheck is going to be enough. There are more people who are anxious about their water bills. Ask me how I know.
But what do you fear
That we're working. No, I'm not. First of all, no, Greg, I'm not afraid. I'm not. It is ungodly to walk in fear. What I'm simply saying is this, that the technology that has been out there has because here's the thing, the technology that exists right now, here's the question, are people still feeling anxious? Yes. Do they still feel afraid? Yes. So the technology has not solved their anxiety and fear. What you have in a mayor is someone who's going to work collectively and collaboratively to make sure that corporations who have played on the fear of taxpayers, that have cost the taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars because of lack of investment. And so I understand that that fear is real, and that's why I'm working every single day to address it. 200 more detectives, 3 helicopters, making sure that we have mental health providers who are showing up to crises. And here's the thing, those investments are working. Homicides are down, shootings are down. In fact, in every single category around violent crime in this city, it's all trending in the right direction because we're taking a holistic approach. I'm not going to let our people down.
Mayor, there was a pretty negative editorial from 23rd Ward Alderwoman Silvana Tabares in the Tribune today. And also this vote, 33. Are you worried? You've got big votes coming up, the budget. If 33 Alder people went against you on this, are you worried you're going to be able to get to 26 on some of your big agenda items coming up like the budget?
No.
Can you expound?
Expound on
How do you get to 26 when you lost 33 here?
I'm really trying to my best to understand your logic. You're saying that one vote could mean the vote of something else.
Well, I'm just saying, you're not worried then that it portends perhaps having trouble getting to 26 on some of your other big agenda items?
No.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi.
So you had 33 alders, including someone from your management team, disagree with you on ShotSpotter. You were forced to pivot on your appointment for zoning commissioner. I know one ally to the other. I hear you, but it was still a pivot because people on the council were opposed. There were council members who criticized your choice for legislative affairs director. What are you doing to just calm those tensions, or, you know, bring everybody back in the fold with the council, given all of that at a very difficult time as you're trying to get the budget on its way?
Mm-hmm. So there was not a pivot. There were multiple names that we were considering. You all happened to hear of one name. There were multiple names that were considered. We went with an ally.
Okay.
And
but do the big picture. My question is.
I got you. I'm responding to all of your questions, right?
Okay.
You talked about zoning, you talked about legislative affairs, and you talked about a level of calmness. Okay? I'm going to respond to all of them, okay? We have an ally who is my zoning chair. That's a good thing. And he represents a very diverse community. There's beauty in that. There's beauty in that. And there were many names that were discussed. That's the one that I settled on, and that's the one that I got.
Settled.
Yes. Yes. I could have settled on someone else.
But settled seems like that's not your first choice. I want you to step back and say, okay, every time I turn, I've got aldermen yelling at me for something. What
Well,
do I
that's
need to
not
do?
new to any mayor. That is not. I just want you to understand, like, how you've been covering politics. So let me just give it to you straight. We continue to bring people together. All of our major initiatives in our agenda, we've been able to carry forward. Sub-minimum wage, we abolished it. Paid time off, we created and expanded it, right? The billions of dollars that we are investing on the west and south sides of the city of Chicago, the $250 million that's going towards homelessness. All of our major initiatives, we've carried through on them. Now, are there individuals that are feeling the weight of doing things differently? Yes, because we are doing things differently. I have a different value system than other mayors. So yes, maybe things went more smoothly when they sold off the parking meter. Maybe things did run more smoothly when they took pension dollars and put it downtown. Maybe things did run smoother when they sold off the Skyway. Maybe things went better when they decided to spend all the money and then left me with the bill. Maybe things did run smoother, but did it help the people of Chicago? No. And so if the most diverse administration in the history of Chicago rubs things a little differently, well, that's the energy that we bring. Look at this stage. We look different. And that's a good thing. And we're moving in a different direction. And there are some people that will feel uneasy. But the way we bring calm is by continuing to show up in our values.
Are you meeting with people one-on-one?
I meet with all of our leaders, from state reps, state senators, to alders, our congressional leaders. I meet with business leaders, labor leaders, community-based organizations. Sometimes I even take a meeting with my Aunt Betty, sometimes.
Hi, Mayor. A question I wanted to ask you really since May about ShotSpotter. When you canceled the contract, you put out a statement. You waited several days before addressing it with the media. You simply said the technology was ineffective. I wonder if you think you could have avoided these two embarrassing votes had you campaigned harder to win public opinion. The news coverage, in my opinion, has sort of been pro-ShotSpotter. So you left months and months when there was this perception that this crucial tool that Chicago police use and need, and that the alders believe from feedback based on their community is essential. You let that be the narrative for months. So I wonder if looking back, you had used the walkie-talkies on a pole line and pointed out that other cities were canceling the contract sooner.
That information was already out there. The state's attorney's opinion was available for the press to pick up on. The OIG information was before my time. All of these reports have been in the media before my time. So you didn't have to wait on me to tell you something that was already available. As far as cities canceling, that has always been in the media. It's always been in the press. Now, what people decide to cover, I mean, that's prerogative, right? Look, I'm not looking back. That's the problem that we've had in this city. We're doing things differently. Now, look, if people want a mayor who is going to appease folks, to just satisfy some of the proclivities that people might have, I'm not that person. I was elected to transform this city. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to transform this city.
One other question. I think we're doing multiple, right? On Kennedy Bartley, just quickly, did your vetting pick up the fact that she'd called police effing pigs and sort of flirted with abolishing the police? And also, what has she said to you to assure you that she can remain in your administration and that, you know, she's someone you want to have on your team, because those are not your views?
Well, look, again, those are not my views. They're not. And, you know, those harsh comments were offensive. And there is a great deal of rage and emotion that exists, and there are times when those emotions get the best of people, and they say things that are hurtful. Here's what I know, that my administration is committed to making sure that our law enforcement, brave women and men, have everything that they need. That's why we gave them raises, of which some people said I gave them too much. It's why we're committed to getting to our 200 detectives. It's why we have more technology coming on board, like our helicopters. It's why we're actually freeing up law enforcement from responding to mental health crises. That's the type of advocacy that the police officers want. Cutting down the ratios with supervision, so that it's moving in a constitutional way. You know, the police department has taken my vision and they've embraced it. That's what I know, and I have an administration that is committed to transforming this city and building a better, stronger, safer Chicago. And she has done the right thing by talking to leadership in the police department and apologizing for her words. She's having sit-downs with individuals. Look, here's the beautiful part about my administration. We believe in grace. If I judged every single person on the things that they've said about me, whether publicly or privately, I would have a hard time going out to dinner with anybody. People deserve a right to be able to atone, even our police department. Now look, we are paying hundreds of millions of dollars to atone for harm. Should we not do that? Should we leave it up to the individuals who are responsible for it and make them do it? Guess who's paying that bill? The taxpayers are. I'm signing off on that. So if we can extend grace to individuals that may have harmed people, even in their capacity, we certainly can extend grace to someone who said very harsh and offensive words. That's what our society needs more of. We are so quick to judge and to punish people and send them away and say they're not qualified because of what they said or what they've done. Maybe it's not what they feel anymore. Now, you all know I lead with my faith. I believe in grace. There are people who are chairs in city council that did not support me. Some of whom said very harsh words about my candidacy and what it would mean if I were to become mayor. In fact, there are more individuals who did not support me who have leadership positions in city council. That's called grace, forgiveness, understanding the nature of humans, and giving them the opportunity to chart a new course. That is the gift of God.
Hi, Mayor. I have two questions for you. I am going to bring back up the Alderman Riley situation and just explain it a little bit more. There are people that believe that's very serious and it warrants a response from you. So we have Muslim and Jewish leaders that are criticizing Alderman Riley after he tweeted a photo of a pager that read, quote, Mazel Tov, in the wake of deadly attacks caused by exploding pagers from the nation of Israel. targeting Hezbollah in Lebanon and Syria, which caused a couple deaths, thousands of injuries, but to a lot of innocent people.
Look, I didn't see the tweet. If that's what he did, that's
should he face repercussions for that?
That's beyond offensive, and he should apologize for it.
But should he face repercussions? There's people on city council that have
repercussions, such
repercussions, censorship, whatever that might be.
That's not my authority. I don't have the authority to censure people. If city council members decide to take that up for a vote, we've obviously have seen that happen before. But again, you know, what you are reporting, because I did not see that actual tweet. Again, I am not on social media. I don't have a password or nothing. But if that is what is being reported, he should apologize for it. And it sounds quite horrific and beyond offensive.
Alderman Hopkins this morning said during a press conference on ShotSpotter, everyone in this room knows that we have what is called a strong council, weak mayor form of government. Do you agree with his statements here? I'm wondering if you think this statement will impede your ability to work with other members on the council.
No, listen, you all. I mean, I get I understand how politics have been done in this city before. I do, but I've demonstrated that we're doing things differently. We're not punishing people because of their political views. I don't do that. That is not democracy. And here's the thing, it's also hypocritical. Imagine if we were to allow that type of paradigm to exist where you punish people for their political views and that becomes the norm. I wouldn't be standing here today. The political view of my liberation was something that was opposed by half the country. So should we have said, listen, half the country is not with, you know, the ending of slavery? Does that suggest or somehow that you don't have the will of the people? You know what I'm saying? So I just don't think it's appropriate. And I'm not going to do this to Alderman Hopkins or anyone else. Look, I'm a social studies teacher. I mean, he ain't wrong. I mean, I've taught, you know, Chicago government. That is the design of it. And there are still dynamics that exist within the executive branch that I do have the authority to do, and I should be permitted to do that, and I'm going to do that.
Hey, Mayor.
Hey.
Sound thinking representatives have said they haven't heard from your office for months. How will decommissioning work, and who is going to take down the system when?
All right, so that's a very good question. First of all, it's not true, but as far as the decommission is concerned, Mary or Gary, either one of you want to take that on? Which one? Yeah, both could do it if you want. Okay, we'll start with Mary.
Affirming the mayor's statement, it is inaccurate to say there have been no meetings or discussions because I've been in them. So that's not factual. With respect to the process of the demobilization, which is how it's referenced in the contract, there is a phasing that is associated with that, and that has to be worked out in detail with the contract provider. That's typically how it works, and that's how it will work here.
Thank you very much.
And one more question. You talked just now about the need to get technology that helps with response. That's something that aldermen on both sides of today's vote talked about. Why isn't that already in place for September 23rd? There's
an entire process. It takes, listen, relax, Jake, hold on. I promise you, I'm going to talk and then you can come right back. I promise you. Over the last several months, we've been working through a process. It's new. When this detection, put that in quotation, was put forth, guess what? There was no process. We're doing it differently. We are. And some things take time when you're doing it right. And we're going to do it right. Alders will get a chance to experience a brief, and there will be a very robust opportunity for us to come to a conclusion.
What do you think is a reasonable timeline? It's already been, what, 7 months?
A reasonable timeline is to do it right. It's to do it right. I'm going to do it right.
Hi, Mayor.
Hey.
You pushed the $1.25 billion bond program and the unwinding of TIFs as a way to reverse decades of disinvestment and neglect, releasing locked up money that couldn't be used across the city. So why support the expansion of the Pilsen TIF and lock funding up there?
Well, look, that conversation is still going on, and the community is very much interested in providing some significant development that could create jobs in the immediate. Keep this in mind, the reason why we have changed course as it relates to TIFs is because what this TIF is attempting to do for this library, TIFs were not doing. And so, yes, we are winding down, but keep in mind, all TIFs will not be eliminated. There's a process.
So part of the pitch from Alderman Sigcho Lopez is to use TIF proceeds for a localized property tax relief pilot, which is not currently an allowable TIF use. Do you think Springfield should change the law to allow that?
Well, look, we do need property tax relief, right? I mean, these assessments that have come out have created a great deal of anxiety and fear, legitimate anxiety and fear and harm. There are many things that our budget director, as well as our entire finance team is working with Springfield around a host of potential revenue ideas and areas in which we can provide relief for working people. What's happening in communities like Pilsen, Little Village, Bronzeville, South Loop, even in my neighborhood, Austin, is becoming increasingly more unaffordable. And so that's why this bond and us working hard to build affordable homes is the top priority. And again, we're going to continue to work with Springfield around a host of things, whether it's education funding, housing, homelessness, youth employment, mental health. There are a number of things that we've already been working together on, and we'll continue to do that. Thank you.
Is TIF on the table for that?
I'll put it to you this way. This is what I've said repeatedly. We are working with the state of Illinois around a host of revenue ideas and potential state laws or state laws that could provide relief. Everything is on the table.
Hi, Mayor. On the revenue side of things, Alderman William Hall, he suggested that the state should be contributing more to help the city close those deficits, and specifically that the state should be the one to pay that $175 million CPS pension payment. You know, is that an option that you would lobby Springfield on in the upcoming veto session, or a route you plan to take?
Well, I mean, when it comes to pension payments, again, I mean, I don't have to, relitigate how the failures has caused this problem in the first place. Here's what I can say is that it's going to take all levels of government to establish a real commitment of revenue that can respond to our pension payment, right? Because property taxes right now in the city of Chicago, I mean, I believe that's the primary bill essentially that we are paying. And that's causing an off balance, right? We have expenditures that have gone down. I believe to our budget director Guzman, I believe we've saved the taxpayers about $200 million so far. Just expenditures have gone down, but the revenues have not caught up with our expenses. So we're all going to have to come together and figure it out. And the state of Illinois, county government, local government around the country are all facing the same dynamic, that we have a lopsided structure where our taxes are primarily based on sales, and there are people who have less who are carrying that weight and that burden, and we do have to shift that dynamic.
And on the ethics ordinance that was passed today, do you see that as a rebuke of you after your campaign had accepted and then returned lobbyist contributions?
No, it's not. Look, people donate to our campaign who don't know the rules. I don't have the ability to stop you from giving to my campaign, right? So if someone writes a check to my campaign and they're in violation, when we discover that, we send it back. People still might get it wrong. So it's not, people, believe it or not, people don't pay attention to every dynamic of city government, believe that or not. And so it's not a rebuke. We've always been in compliance with it. We just simply said that if you're concerned about corruption, we should actually focus on a full package. And I still stand by that.
Hi, Mayor.
Hey.
Your office has declined to say whether you're taking a pay raise this year, though the deadline to decide on that has come and gone. It's outlined in city ordinance. Can you explain your thinking behind keeping that decision private until budget season? If the deadline has already passed, why not just say what you've decided? And are you taking a raise next year?
Well, look, because the way we do budgets in Chicago, we present the entire budget. You don't send piecemeals of things that you will or will not do. Here's what I've said repeatedly. Everything is on the table, including raises. Everything.
On ShotSpotter, if the legislative branch can't force the city to enter into a contract, why bother to veto this ordinance? You let the previous pro ShotSpotter ordinance kind of just sit without vetoing it? Why not do the same? What's different about this ordinance? Is it more legally binding than the previous ShotSpotter ordinance?
It's illegal. It's
In a way that the previous one wasn't?
This one is illegal.
I did have just one follow-up question on the bond plan. Is there any consideration on the $1.25 billion bond plan? Is there any consideration of rethinking that and potentially thinking about using any expired TIF district funding to help fill budget gaps for next year or 26, 27?
We are discussing every aspect of our budget. And again, you know, when I was running for office, we said that the first budget that we passed would be about $500 million. Last year, we forecast this one. And our finance team, they're all here today. You know, our budget director, Annette Guzman, our comptroller, Chase Rahwinko, and our CFO, Jill Jarowski is here. They're the best team. They're the best team, I would say, arguably in the country. You know, our bond ratings continue to go up. We find creative ways to continue to invest in people. It's a smart group of people. They're smart. Look, I inherited problems. I'm fixing them.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening.
Regarding the RFI for gunshot, so are you open to other companies than SoundThinking providing gunshot detection technology?
Yes, that's what an RFI does, yes.
So with regards to the RFI, ShotSpotter is currently, SoundThinking is currently the largest purveyor of gunshot detection technology in the country. They also have other services like Crime Tracer that are sort of embedded in an overall package that they offer to cities. Should the RFI determine that there are no other players who could service the size market that Chicago has, will you come back to ShotSpotter, or do we say goodbye to gunshot detection altogether?
Well, that's going to be a collective decision. The whole point of opening up the process was so that everyone can participate. And so they get to make their case like everyone else. When those cases are made, there will be recommendations that will be put forth, and we will bring those to the public.
Could ShotSpotter be one of those recommendations if they're the best?
If they choose to respond to this RFI, they will have an opportunity like everyone else.
Thank you. Last question is, Alderman Moore has said to me and repeatedly that should this ordinance be vetoed, that you could prepare for a court fight. Is your administration preparing for any sort of...
Well, that's why we want to veto it, because anyone could take this up and bring it forth the court. Am I accurate with that, Mary Richardson Lowry? I'm not a constitutional law expert.
To respond to your question, because it was an act by a legislative body that is reserved for the executive body, it is not only challengeable by the executive body, it's challengeable by anyone who would think that they're usurping contractual rights. So I'm hopeful. We heard their concerns around public safety and the desire to try to redress that. What I'm hopeful is that all the parties will sit down and have a thoughtful conversation internally about what that looks like, including the alders. Unfortunately, as written, that particular work product is inconsistent with the Separation of Powers Act that applies to all legislative bodies and also applies to the executive branch. They cannot usurp contractual rights.
And again, just to put a fine point on that, I thought I had that right. I took one constitutional law class, which, by the way, becoming a social studies teacher, just want you all to know, social studies teachers, we're really lawyers who just don't want to wear suits every day. So, but, you know, to put a fine point on that is that we are hopeful. That was the whole point. You all do realize, let me just say this real quick. There have been other mayors that have canceled contracts and raises without any due process. I know because I've experienced it as a teacher. 4% raises, circumventing union contracts. Not only did we make a commitment, you know, on the campaign trail that we're going to tell people the truth, we actually gave them grace, kept it, extended it. We actually commissioned the actual data because the data points that we had, I did want to see if there would be other examples of how this particular device could serve. But the most important thing here is we're already making investments in community safety. That as a city, I'm working hard to elevate the consciousness of the people of Chicago so that we don't have dumbed down politics, where people play on our fears. Do you know what people are more afraid of? Let me tell you what they're more afraid of. They're afraid of losing their jobs. They're afraid that they're not going to be able to afford their property taxes. That's real anxiety. And we're doing things differently here. We said that we were going to invest in people, we were going to tell people the truth, that we we're going to find structural ways to change the way finances are handled in this city. We're balancing budgets. We're actually paying bills that other people didn't. And we're still investing in people. Yes, it's been some turbulence for some people because they've been used to just sailing along to get along. It's a new day in Chicago. We're going to invest in people, tell people the truth. I'm going to do everything in my power to protect people, to keep them safe.
Yeah, my late father was not only a social studies teacher and CPS for about 38 years, he was also a law school dropout. So anyways, you've been quoted as describing ShotSpotter as a walkie-talkie on a stick. So the Hattie McDaniels question is, what do you have better to offer in its place?
Yeah, thank you for that. So the work that our Deputy Mayor Garen Gatewood has been engaged in with many stakeholders, stakeholders across the board, including the Chicago Police Department. There are a number of other forms of technology that have captured our interest, and we're exploring all of them. This RFI is going to give the public the opportunity to engage in a way that the administration that brought it in, that they didn't do. That's what I mean. When I say we're doing things differently, we literally are doing things differently. Did anybody in here ever get a briefing on ShotSpotter in 2016, 2017? Like, was there ever a public meeting or discussion about this detection? Was there ever any discourse around whether or not this detection was actually valuable? So when people ask about, you know, what do we have, the fact that you actually get to have that is proof and point that we are doing things differently. That's the whole impetus behind the RFI. So it's not so much about what I have personally, because I'm not a corporate leader in shot detection. Now, based upon how much money, you know, some of these folks have made duping the people of this country, I see why people have, you know, have gone into that industry. But there will be multiple examples in which it will be made available that all of our stakeholders will begin to explore.
What technologies are on the short list that you all are looking at?
See, I want to be careful, you know, not to look. I don't want anybody to believe that I'm trying to tip the scale in one way or another.
Well, we're not
I
doing
would
that,
just
just
say,
which ones are you
no,
looking
I
at?
hear you. I mean, it's a fair question, but all I'm saying is there are other forms of technology that has piqued our interest, and this RFI is going to bring that about.
So the
all right, last one, Mark.
So
last
the first and last one, and maybe a possible follow-up determined.
No, this is the last one, Mark.
That's the last one. No, fair is fair. You gave a whole bunch of people.
Okay, come on, Mark.
Follow up. Okay, and another follow-up if necessary. So anyways, on the first day of the DNC at the Harold Washington Public Library, you offered as a form of reparations, one, these publicly run, city-run grocery stores and city-run city-run banks. And then Dorian Warren also suggested that this experiment you have with universal income is also a form of reparations. So the question is, how is that going to create black wealth for black families when it's clocked for black families at least as $0.00 compared with wealth for brown and white communities?
No, thank you for that question, Mark. Your last question. Thank you for your last question. Look, the reason why we put together this task force is to look at a variety of things, of how reparations could look being ran by a municipality. And whether it's food, whether it's education, whether it's health care, transportation, we should look at all of it. Whether it's direct payments to people, we should look at all of it. But in terms of building real sustainable black wealth in this city, it's why we're investing in homes and home ownership. Millions of dollars to create a pathway to home ownership. This is something that Vice President Kamala Harris is pushing as well. As I said earlier, a black contractor, a prime contractor, Boa Construction, received a contract at the airport. It's the first time in the history of the United States of America in terms of cargo expansion. We have a new chief of procurement. Her legacy is quite profound in this city. She comes from a legacy where black jobs and black wealth was very much a part of the DNA of her bloodline. And so we have someone who understands that, and we're going to continue to make sure that we're providing opportunities for all Chicagoans, but more specifically for black wealth. All right, thank you.
Okay, well, as I pass the mic, your constituents want to know when the studying up is going to end and the paying up is going to begin on reparations under your administration.
I like that. That's a real Reverend Jackson quote. Thank you.
William Kelly, City News Bureau, New York Post, Mayor Johnson. Chicagoans asked me to ask you, considering we're facing this $233 million budget shortfall this year and a $1 billion budget shortfall next year, why wouldn't you have proposed a migrant spending freeze instead of a police spending freeze, considering the fact that the police department is down 2,000 officers already, 150 of them are on your personal security detail. You know, the issue that I hear from regular Chicagoans every day, black and brown, by the way, tell me that violent crime is their number one concern. This is why they want to move out of the city.
Well,
they've got, you know, if I may finish, they've got, you know, they're concerned about the rise of migrant crime, of shoplifting, of retail theft. Small business owners worry every time they wake up in the morning, are they going to have to go and sweep broken glass out of their from their storefront? Not to mention all of the armed robbery, the carjackings that are, you know, double-digit shootings every week, murder, obviously, you know, and you know, why wouldn't you, you know, why would you prioritize migrant spending over public safety?
We're not. We're not. In fact, to my budget director, our budget for the city of Chicago for public safety, what is it, 40% of our spending? What's the percentage of spending?
$2 billion budget for the police department.
So it's a $2 billion budget for a police department, $2 billion budget for the police department. So we do prioritize. It's not 40%, my apologies, but we spend $2 billion on community safety just for policing alone. So it is a priority. It's the top priority that I have as mayor of the city of Chicago. And since I've been mayor, there's been double-digit reductions in homicides. Hold on, relax. There's been double-digit reductions. So homicides are down, shootings are down, and every single category of violence in this city, it's down. Now, one of the reasons why it's down is because I made a commitment to hire more detectives. We've done that. We have 3 helicopters, brand new ones, by the end of the year. You know, we are investing in mental health support so that police officers don't have to show up to mental health crises, right? So all of this is contributing to our overall effort to build a better, stronger, safer Chicago. Now, you know, as far as, you know, spending is concerned, look, we have prioritized the west and south sides of the city of Chicago. 20 times the amount of spending in the west and south sides in my first 15 months in office than what we've had to spend to respond to this crisis. Here's the real question. One of the reasons why local municipalities have had to respond to new arrivals is because the federal government, particularly Trump Republicans, refused to work with the Senate and the president. A bipartisan bill that was passed in the Senate that Trump Republicans did not want to support in the House because they wanted to make it an issue. Now, since I've been in office, by the way, since last December, not one bus has come to Chicago since last December. You know why? It's because the governor of Texas didn't want to work with us. He wanted to cause chaos. We brought calm. Now, the last point, there were new arrivals sleeping on floors in police districts before I was mayor. And everybody was up in arms because they were all out in the street and sleeping on floors. I fixed that. And here's the real good news. We're building and we're working towards a single shelter system for everyone. The reason why we were pushing for Bring Chicago Home to make corporate interests pay their fair share was so that we can address homelessness. That's why we're pushing for that. But of course, greedy corporations, again, did not want to pay their fair share, and it's left people vulnerable. But we're going to continue to work to find the right investments to not only balance our budget, but to keep those investments alive.
You mentioned Donald Trump. You brought his name up in the same sentence as shootings. Do you want to apologize or rescind any of your comments about Donald Trump that perhaps are actually motivating and inspiring people to go out and try to shoot Donald Trump?
Well, political violence is horrific, and there's no place for it. Calling out the fact that Donald Trump doesn't believe in our values to build affordable homes and to respond to mental health crises, to actually work with Congress to come up with comprehensive immigration reform, calling those things out is the responsibility of leadership. That's all we're doing. We disagree politically, but in no way do I condone political acts of violence. Violence in any form is deadly and wicked. And I hope that this country continues to recognize that, that there's no place for it. Thank you all very much. Thank you all very much.